chickens are kind of like the gateway animal to homesteading, the homesteading lifestyle, because they're generally friendly and they produce eggs and they're definitely entertaining. So chicken keeping would be a skill to learn. This is the Homesteading for Beginners podcast, and I'm Mona Weathers, your homesteading mentor and coach. I'm here to encourage you to pursue your homesteading dreams with the right mindset in a way that is healthy for you, your family, and your community. If you desire to establish a solid foundation for your homesteading journey, then you are in the right place. Join me as I share stories from the past 20 years of my own journey, as well as practical and actionable steps you can take to start and maintain a healthy homestead. Welcome to episode 7 of the Homesteading for Beginners podcast. I hope wherever you are listening from, you are healthy and well. In today's episode, I'm going to go over some skills you can learn as a homestead dreamer or a new homesteader that are considered kind of foundational based on the size of the property you're on. I'll include ideas for those of you who are apartment steading and city steading as well. But before I begin, I want to be sure to tell you about the Off-Grid Homestead Bundle launching today. I shared about this bundle last episode. It's a digital product bundle with over 140 different educational resources. The resources include things like chicken keeping, beekeeping, fermenting, using natural products, tiny house living, off-grid living, of course, canning, and just so much more. There's also my Homesteading for Beginners workbook in there, as I mentioned before. This bundle is only available between September 16th, so that's today when this episode airs, September 16th through the 25th. 25th is the last day, and you will not have access to it after the 25th. I've created I got a domain that's actually my name, monaweathers.com, that will direct straight to my link where you can purchase the bundle. So that's monaweathers.com, and it's WEATHERS, like the weather with an S. After this bundle is over, that website will link to something of mine. I'm not sure. It probably will be my private community, membership community in SageSpot that I mentioned in previous episodes. So it'll be connected to me somehow. So just you can keep that website in mind. Again, at the end of this episode, I have a few of the creators that are going to share about their products. This has been really fun to be able to get to know the creators of this bundle and find out all the great things that they've created for you and for me. I'm so excited about some of these things in here. I've had access to this bundle for a couple of weeks now, and it's amazing. It's truly an amazing bundle, so don't miss it. I can't stress that enough. Okay, let's get started and talk about some of the skills you can learn as a homesteader, either if you're in an apartment all the way up until you have land. I'm going to give you some ideas of skills that are really important to learn based on the size of the property you have. So that includes people who are living in apartments. And these skills, I've said in the last couple episodes that it's just really important to get started where you're at and not to wait. So just keep in mind that there are so many things that you can learn right now where you are. As I mentioned in, I think, the last episode about cooking from scratch, this is something someone in apartments, someone in a very small space homestead, we can call you city steaders or apartment steaders. You can start learning the skill of cooking from scratch. That is really an important skill to have because it's not only healthy for you, it saves money. There's just so many benefits to learning how to cook from scratch. And I know a lot of people feel it can be intimidating or they just think it's going to take more time. But as you become better at this skill, it really goes fast. I've been making food from scratch for so long that I feel like I can whip out a turkey dinner with all the things fairly easy or fair, like it doesn't take much effort for me to do it. Like it goes pretty well because I've been doing it for so many years. I know what needs to come first, I know what needs to go next, and someone who's been cooking from scratch really does have that skill and knows that. It's not like I cook everything great or anything like that, but I've got pretty good at cooking turkey dinners with all the fixins. Okay, next, you can learn how to garden being in an apartment setting. If you have a windowsill, if you have a balcony, if you have a rooftop garden. My daughter, who lives in Mexico City, is going to be putting out a rooftop garden because she lives in a city. So just don't let that stop you from growing your own food because you think you don't have enough space. It really doesn't take much space to grow food. Also, you can grow food indoors, like I said, with the windowsill, but you can also grow microgreens, and microgreens will grow under lights. You have shelves that have these trays, and you can grow microgreens, and microgreens are very nutritious. So I urge you to look into that. And actually, in the homesteading, the Off-Grid Homestead bundle, there is a course or a ebook, I can't remember, but on microgreens. So check that out. Okay, next thing is fermenting. Fermenting is so good for you. Fermenting foods, if you don't know what that is, it's when you allow beneficial bacteria to grow in and on your food. And then you consume it, and that beneficial bacteria is in your intestinal tract, which is what we lack. A lot of people lack this. So learning how to ferment is just super important. There's things like sauerkraut, there's things like kimchi, there's things like kombucha and water kefir. Water kefir is one of my favorites to make. I got really pretty good at it at one point. I haven't really gotten back into it as much, but I got really good at it where kids loved it. It was just a really good drink. I call it a healthy soda. Other food preserving methods are also super beneficial, and you can do them from wherever you are living. There would be canning, dehydrating, freezing. These are all food preservation methods that you can learn how to do well, and they will be not only will you be able to have a good way to keep anything that you grow from your rooftop garden, you'll be able to preserve it all as well. I'll add a list of the different things that are in the Off-Grid Homestead bundle so that you can see the different things that I'm talking about. A lot of those things are in there. Actually, most of the things that I'm talking about are in there, including foraging. Now, that's something that you would have to go out and look for. Foraging as in getting things that are already growing around your environment and knowing how to use them. There's some things that are usable for cooking, and there's some things that are usable for making products like body care products, hair care products, and there's things like that you can use by just knowing what different plants are in the environment where you live. Now, every area has something, so learning to identify what those things are and being able to use them for food and to make into poultices and salves and things like that. You can also grow mushrooms indoors as well, and there is an ebook in the bundle that teaches how to grow oyster mushrooms. Another skill that you can actually learn in a small space is how to become a community leader. That is something that is super valuable, and as you're trying to learn and meet new people, if you create the environment that you want for your community to be, that's just a super good skill to learn. And you don't have to wait for somebody to create the community you want. You can be the community leader and create it yourself. Communication skills are not everyone's strength, so this is why this can be really considered a very valuable skill. Moving on to an urban suburban setting, for if you were living in an urban or suburban setting, these are some things that you can learn that are basically kind of foundational to the homesteading journey, but don't make these things the things that you have to learn. It's just some ideas. You design your homestead the way you want it to be. So if you, for instance, I have chicken keeping as one of the skills to learn in a urban setting. But if you don't want to raise chickens, don't raise chickens. But that is a definitely, chickens are kind of like the gateway animal to homesteading, the homesteading lifestyle, because they're generally friendly and they produce eggs and they're definitely entertaining. So chicken keeping would be a skill to learn. You can learn that from your neighbors or friends or anyone else who has it, the community, having community around you. A lot of people are really willing to teach you how to care for chickens and other animals. But if you're looking for something really good, again, the bundle has a couple of chicken resources in there, keeping chickens, and there is a chicken course in there as well. Okay, so next one is beekeeping. And it really depends on how comfortable you are with bees, but since bees don't really require a lot of space, that is contained space, they really only need their bee boxes, and then they can fly up to 3 miles radius, and generally they don't like bother anybody as long as nobody's messing with their hive. I am never kept bees myself, but I've been instructed by a few people. We almost did bees. We were so close. I was in a beekeeping club and I just decided not to because the area we lived in, there wasn't enough for the bees to consume. So they were going out farther and farther. And eventually sometimes they'll leave, they'll swarm. And I just couldn't purchase a bunch of bees because they cost a couple $100 usually. I couldn't purchase bees and then have them swarm. So that was my decision. But now that we are living in Georgia, that is a different story. There's stuff for bees everywhere. So we will eventually start keeping bees. This one might surprise you, but you can actually keep dairy goats in a very small backyard. I've had several friends that have done this before. Dairy goats don't tend to need a whole lot of exercise, although, more space is definitely better, but you can technically keep them in a small area as long as your neighbors don't mind and you don't have any HOA that prevents you from keeping them. You can keep a couple dairy goats and they produce, sometimes depending on which ones you're getting, you can get like a gallon of milk to 2 gallons of milk a day. There are the really Saanens, which are the really big dairy goats. I believe they produce about 2 gallons of milk a day. But like what we were getting was usually around 3 quarts to a gallon of milk from one goat. So just keep that in mind. And you don't need 2 goats that are producing milk either. If that sounds like way too much, you could just have one as a companion and one producing. And I would do that often with staggering the goats so that one was producing and one wasn't, so that I wouldn't be overwhelmed with milk. And the other one got a break from having to have offspring, because in order for them to produce milk, they need to have had given birth, and that's called freshening. Learning to raise quail is another option. They require a little bit different environment, a little different care than a chicken, so that requires different knowledge, but they are very, very good for people who are just getting started out. And for anyone who's in a small space, because they don't need the space like a chicken needs space. They also will mature very quickly. It takes about 2 months for them to mature, so they can lay eggs at that time. They can be used for meat if you are eat meat and want a meat bird. They're very good for that. They're very small, but that makes them easy to process. So quail, and they produce eggs. So they're really kind of a neat little animal to have if you have a small space. And of course, in this size space, and if you have a small backyard, you can grow food. You can grow a garden. So I definitely encourage you to do that if you're in have a small backyard. There's so many ways to grow food. You can grow up vertically. You can grow, wide. It doesn't matter. There's so many ways to grow food. You can grow in grow bags. And some of the other things on the list for this kind of space is just learning woodworking skills so that you can build chicken coops and garden boxes and greenhouses and things like that. Taking care of other people's animals. This is a skill that you can do so that it will prepare you for the larger space that you hope to have. If your desire is to have, a few acres, which we will talk about next, and what you can do on a few acres. So another thing you could do is learn how to trade goods with other people. I put this in here because there's a lot of things that we can do that seem easy and simple, but they're not always, because we have to use our communication skills and things like that and be, kind human beings towards each other. So learning how to trade other goods with someone else is really a good skill to learn. And this is the time you can start this in your apartment setting. If you are in an apartment, I'm just trying to build your experiences and your knowledge base as you grow in your homesteading journey. Okay, let's move on to farm style homesteading, which would be something like a few acres of land. So in a farm style, making sure that it's okay to have large livestock and how many livestock you're allowed to have, because depending on where you are, the different laws apply to, how many large livestock you're allowed. But like cattle, you can, if you have a large setup, you can do cattle, you can do pigs, you can do more dairy goats, you can do horses and llamas and things like that. Just be sure that you are understanding what the purposes are for each of these animals, and really plan out your livestock, because what ends up happening sometimes is that people will get overwhelmed and not realize that they cost more, that the cost to keep these animals is higher than they expected. So just make sure you do your research on whatever animal it is you decide to care for. And of course, you need to know how to care for that particular animal. Horses are very different than cows, and cows are very different than pigs. And so each animal really requires some education on your part. Having a larger piece of land also means that you can have a larger garden. And so there's different methods of growing food when it's large space. So let's say that you have an acre of garden. There's different methods that you might want to use because it's less expensive, like tilling. Generally, I like to do a no-till garden, which is when you don't disrupt the soil and you put layers of organic material on it and let it decompose naturally and make a very good environment for growing. But if you're in a very large space, if you have a very large garden, it may not be feasible. That may not be as easy. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it in the future. But if you're just starting out the garden, tilling might be the option. There's so many different ways. So just that is a skill to learn how to go from backyard gardening to a large space garden. Learning how to use the farm equipment that you need will prevent you from having to hire someone. Of course, you will need to purchase the farm equipment, but if you don't know how to use it, you have it, but you don't know how to use it, then it doesn't really do much good, and you might as well hire somebody. But if you've purchased something, learning how to use the farm equipment, there's tractors, there's tillers, there's all sorts of things that you can learn how to use properly. And a lot of times the places that you purchase them from, the dealers, have those educational resources for you. The last one I'm going to share is having to do with the fact that you're growing so much. You're most likely wanting to sell the products that you're growing and the animals that you're raising in some form or fashion. because that is income for you. But the skill that comes with that is, I think, is super important, is customer service. Being a good person to your customers, having those communication skills that we talked about before, and just being a good human being to other people will get you very, very far. So if you feel like you don't have good customer service skills, really take time to learn that. If you do a farmer's market, it's the same thing. I just really there's just some people that I just would rather not purchase from because they give me no smile, no nothing. The people that give me response in those farmers markets are just so much more pleasant to purchase from. So it's a simple thing to do. Sometimes it's just simply just being smiling and having your eyes smile. Okay, that's all I have for you today. I hope this was helpful. There are so many things that you can learn in your homesteading journey. Starting out in an apartment in small space, just jump in. You have the resources. You have me. By the way, today is also the day that I launched my private community. It's more of a soft launch, so we'll be getting in and doing some things here pretty soon. But my private community in SageSpot, I mentioned in a couple episodes, but it is launched today as well. So if you want that information, there will be a link in the show notes. Now you can listen to the next couple of contributors of the Off-Grid Homestead Bundle. They are going to share what their product does and how it can help you.
Hi, my name is Alexa from Sprouts on Sprouts, and I wrote Ferments in Every Kitchen for the ebook bundle. It's a simple ebook with quick, easy recipes to implement fermentations into your kitchen today. Doesn't matter where you are or how big your kitchen is or how developed your homestead is. You can ferment today.
Hi, I'm Carrie from the Little Palette Farmhouse, and I'm here to help you acquire skills to grow organic food for you and your family. Bountiful Backyard is an interactive garden design guide with project ideas and inspiration that has been created to set you up for success. Eleanor Roosevelt said it takes as much energy to wish as it does to plan. And so before you even build that first raised bed, it's going to challenge you to think about what you want to grow, when you want to grow, and how you want to grow. It's a place for you to dream and theme your garden, collect ideas, write lists and goals. And alongside your planning, I also share my favorite tips, tricks and ideas, which are all linked to videos where you can watch me talking you through it. I want to facilitate you enjoying this necessary and exciting part of the process. Come join me on Instagram at the Little Palette Farmhouse. I'll see you there.
Hi, I'm Christine McDonald from Rushing River Apiaries. My Hive is a 1-year subscription to my virtual beekeeping mentorship program. This is hosted through my website, where you'll have full access to my blog and YouTube channel, as well as exclusive stories on Instagram. I am here to help you with your beekeeping, whether you are starting your very first hive, whether you've had a hive for a few years but are looking for improved success, or whether you're trying to scale your bees up from hobby to business. I look forward to beekeeping with you.
Okay, that's it for this episode. Remember to go to monaweathers.com to grab your bundle. It's only $50 and it's only available until September 25th. Have a great day. If you are enjoying this podcast, I would really appreciate it if you would take a minute to subscribe or follow. By doing this, you will be helping the podcast to be seen by more people, and I do love reading nice reviews too. Don't forget to visit healthyhomesteading.com for more information on how I can serve you. Until next week, I want you to keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep planning for your homesteading success.